Shalom Vracha. Hello to everybody and Channuka Sameach. Today we have a very, very special Parsha. Continuing of course, last week, the sons, the 12 tribes, the 12 sons, which we explained last week that they're actually the foundations, the 12 edges of the whole world, each with their own unique quality. And here we see the sons go through a process. The process starts. There's a period of hatred between each other, and in the coming Parshat we'll see how they overcome this hatred and start working together. In other words, there's a reason for this hatred. This hatred is not unnecessary. And the reason is the hatred initially emphasizes the difference and the uniqueness and the specialness of each and every one of the tribes. And this gets to an extreme where the hatred, where the differences become a hatred, and almost to the extent of murder, where the brothers want to kill Joseph. And both Joseph and Yehuda, Yosef and Yehuda, both go through processes. And from these processes, they both become great people. But the processes both start in a Yerida, really going down to the bottom. Yosef literally going to the pits, being thrown in a pit. And later on in the jail, which is also called a pit in the Torah, a bore. And Yehuda going down socially and spiritually and morally, to the extent of lying to his daughter-in-law and then being with a prostitute, until he comes to grow, and these two people become two great leaders in Israel. I want to emphasize this time just one point, that because there's a process, by nature, a process has stages, and each stage is a new development. Every time we have a new development, especially in Yosef's life, we have the occurrence of a dream and or the changing of clothing. And this isn't stuff, it's not just coincidental, and we will try and understand what this means in the next few minutes. Let's just go through the examples. First, Joseph, he's one of the brothers, and his father makes him special. How does he do this? He gives him a coat of stripes or colors, tapasim. So here we have a change of clothing. Joseph's response is to have dreams. He has the two dreams of he's one of the sheaves, and all the other sheaves symbolizing the brothers are bowing down to him, or he's one of the stars, and the other brothers, the stars, and his parents, the sun and the moon, are bowing down to him. And this results in the next stage of him being thrown into the pit. The dreams cause the change, and just before he's thrown into the pit, the brothers rip off this clothing and do what they do, dip it in blood, etc. And then Joseph gets sold to the Midianim, and he gets challenged, tempted by the wife of Potiphar, and this is about to change his life again. And what is the instance that changes his life? First of all, Chazal says, in the Torah, that he was about to sin with her. He was about to give in. She's being tempted every day, day after day after day. It's amazing that a young 17-year-old kid could resist this at all. But there came the opportunity where he was even thinking about doing it. And then he saw the image of his father. There's a very nice commentary that says that what is this image? The Jews, especially then in Israel, in Canaan, they didn't have mirrors. And here he was in this very, very wealthy house, and in the bedroom with Potiphar's wife, there were a lot of shiny things, glass, silver, mirrors, and he saw his own reflection. And Chazal said that he was a splitting image of his father. So when he saw his reflection, he saw his father, because he wasn't just looking at himself. But nevertheless, it's not quite a dream, but it's like a dream. And this changes him and makes him run out. But again, he leaves his clothes behind. Again, the change of the clothing as he's running out. And then we know he gets thrown into the prison, into the bore, the pit, and the butler and the baker came, and they have dreams again. And their dreams that Joseph interprets plants a seed in the butler's mind. He forgets about Joseph for a couple of years. And then, after those 2 years, next week's Parshat, when Pharaoh will have dreams, he'll remember Yosef, and Yosef once again changes status, and then they put on royal clothing on him. They change his clothes, specifically mentioned in the Torah. So we see over and over and again the mention of dreams and in clothing. And the dreams and the clothing actually represent two different aspects in a person's life, two extremely opposite aspects. And the Torah tells us, hints to us to relate to both of them. The clothing is how we portray ourselves to the world. As Shakespeare said, the clothing oft betray the man. Sometimes, I remember years ago when I was in the army still, and I had to get a permit to leave the country, and I was on the way for a business meeting, and the taxi stopped for me at my base to get the permit to leave the country. And I was wearing my suit, a tie, all set for business. And going to this base that I've been in so many times, it was completely different. Being dressed in my uniform and getting the same respect or non-respect that soldiers get. All of a sudden the gates opened and hardly checked my papers, and I walked straight in, walked straight out, and it was amazing. And we're told, we have to do this. How you present yourself often will depend on the success, will depend on how you present yourself. And if you're going to a meeting with important people, you'll dress smartly. And if you want to, a friend of mine told me that he works in the Pinat Chai here, and I once got a quote from somebody who does some work building ponds. And he came in these really fancy shoes, and they didn't take him. He said, he's not the kind of guy we want somebody who knows how to do the work. And that is the beged. The beged, the clothing, is the outside, the external, the superficial expression of what you're doing. But nevertheless, we need to deal with the external expression as well. On the other hand, we have the dream. The dream is something that's supernatural. The dream is something that's in our subconscious. It's something that's in our thought process. Whether the dream is a reflection of what we do during the day. Some of the psychologists say that it's our process of us coming to terms with internalizing everything we went in during the day, and the dreams help us do that. Or whether as maybe a small percentage of nevuah, of prophecy. Chazal bring, the rabbis in Masechet Brachot bring a few different opinions, and the dream is a combination of these. There's a lot of nonsense in dreams, but there's a lot of depth in dreams. And the dreams is not limited by the physical. Right? In the dreams, I could be talking to one person, and in a second, he can change to another person. I can be in one place and move to another place. And also dreams, although I feel like it can go over a long period of time, in reality, the amount of time that each dream takes can be a very, very short period of time. Dream is something that's almost detached from the physical. It's interesting that the word in Hebrew, dream, chalom, is very similar to the same root as the nikud, as the vowel in Hebrew, the cholam. The cholam is the only vowel that's on top of the letters. Most of the vowels are underneath the letters. The short is in the middle, but the cholam is on top. The dream is something, the cholam, the chalom, the dream is something that's very spiritual. So we have the beged, and we have the cholam. And let's come back to the beged for a moment. What makes the beged so superficial? Besides that it's the external garment, the word beged in Hebrew is the same word as begidah, as betrayal. God is to betray. A jacket is a me'il, the same word as me'ilah, as extortion. And it's interesting that the word beged is 3 consecutive Hebrew letters, the second, third, and fourth letter of the alphabet, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. It's a very small area, and it's a very superficial view of the whole alphabet, of the whole reality. What letter is missing is, of course, the Aleph. Right? The Aleph is the one. The Aleph is Elohim, is Adnut, Hashem's name. And so if you take just the cause of Hashem, the Bet, the Gimel, the Dalet, the things that came and were created by Hashem, and you take the Aleph away, you're left with the Beged, you're left with the superficiality. So even though superficiality is not good, and we strive for the spirituality, nevertheless we learn from Yosef, and by the way from Yehuda also, you can see also a similarity, that when we go through a change, we need to do both. When we deal with the processes in our lives, we need to firstly have to dream. We have to realize, what does this mean to me? Why does Hashem make this happen, or why am I making this happen? We need to control our lives and decide that what drives us is spirituality and not the beged, not just the physicality. But nevertheless, we have to have ourselves, our bodies, in the physical world. We have to dress correctly. We have to do the physical actions in the correct way. Okay? If you want to open it doesn't matter whether you're opening a shul or a yeshiva or a business or a country club, whatever you're going to do, first you must see what you want to do. What is the purpose that you're doing it? But then you have to have fundraising, you have to have finance, you have to have marketing, you have to have people on the ground who can do the logistics. You need the reality, you need the beged. And these are the two things that have to come together. And what more we learn from this is that the two are actually one. Normally we view it as two separate ideas. Either a person is spiritual, a dreamer, or a person is really down to earth and practical or whatever. And we tell no, you've got to have your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds. Just like the ladder in Bethel that Joseph dreamed about that we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. And that is what we're striving to do. And this is true not just on the personal level of each of us, it's also on the national level and the global level. The state of Israel is not just a physical state. The state of Israel is meant to be a light unto nations. If we think that the whole aim of us, of our purpose here, is to build high-tech companies, to have the strongest army in the world, etc., we've missed the point. We're here to teach ourselves and, through example, the rest of the world, what is morality, what is goodness. But how do we do it? We do it by having one of the best armies in the world. We do it by having one of the best economies in the world. We do it by having one of the best high-tech leadership in the world. And one by one, we're growing. This teeny little country is in the top echelon of all the countries. But we're not there because we're trying to show off. We're not there because we're trying to be rich. We're not there because we think we're important. We're there because the clothing, the hands-on, is the vehicle to bring spirituality into the world. And these two come together. And we can't finish without mentioning Channuka. Channuka is a special chag that we just started last night. And Channuka is interesting. That there's two miracles that are mentioned. One is the miracle of the Pach HaShemen, the oil that lasted, was only meant to last 1 day, and lasted 8 days in the temple. The miracle that they even found the oil, and it lasted so long. And this is, of course, a very spiritual miracle. And the other miracle is the miracle that we won the war. The war of the few people, the few Maccabim, who fought against the great Greek Empire and won. And we've seen this miracle happening again today nowadays. I mean, we're outnumbered, maybe not as much, but about 5-1 in all the wars that Israel has fought, and we won. I just finished reading Minna 18 and seeing the amazing bravery and the results, maybe even a bigger miracle of the rebellion in the Warsaw Ghetto, that a few Jews with no weapons and some handmade bombs and starved and everything against them managed to win for over a month and hold back the best of the German armies that had attacked half the world and conquered and succeeded against half the world. Maybe even that was the beginning of the Israeli army inside Warsaw Ghetto. And these two have come together. In Chanukah, the two of them come together. Now you'd think that the place to mention the miracle of the light would be in the shul, because that's the spiritual side. And the place to mention the wall would be in the streets or in the home, because that's where we're more physical. But strangely enough, Chazal turned it around. In the davening that we add, the prayer of Allah Nisim, we mention only the wall. And we emphasize, we talk about the miracle of the wall. And Dafka, when we light the candles in our doorsteps, in the Reshut Harabim, where we're showing it over to, we're doing a Pisum and Nisa, advertising the Nes on the public level, Dafka there we mention the spirituality. And I think this comes to teach us on a national level that the two are actually intertwined. Where you think the world is spiritual, there you have to bring in the physical. Where you think the world is physical, there you have to bring in the spiritual. And we have to combine them together. Bezrat Hashem, we'll all go from strength to strength, each of us individually, and more important, Am Yisrael will be able to lead the world and make the world a better place. And that will, of course, be done here in Eretz Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom, Chanukah Sameach.